But while you're doing all this stuff on the road, you made this record for Warner's. That was a huge success in the jazz / R&B
It was called adult contemporary at the time,
right?
And then it turned into a smooth jazz effect. And shortly after that, there was no smooth jazz, and it was kind of adult contemporary. I think it was called. And so I mean, I was juggling, and then Ben introduced us to Steve Miller.
Right.
Talk about juggling, man! It was like. Really?
Sanborn, your own solo career, Steve Miller Band, and you did a record with Steve.
And at the time, I was at Paisley Park with Prince, too. I was juggling all four of these things. Yeah.
Time out.
That's a whole other story.
You have to go back to one thing, because I think you omitted one
pretty important one
thing. Yeah, about 1980, no, maybe 79, you get a phone call to join a certain band. Tell me about that.
Oh, boy, yeah. See, we forgot about that one. Well, that's 1979. Prince. I was in the band with. Doug
Can I do
Maynard.
one thing here?
Yeah.
I'm gonna little brother myself here. There we go. Yeah. Okay, my chair was higher than Ricky's.
That's okay.
I had to come down to
I got the Grandpa Gee's chair, so I can be comfortable.
Okay, so Prince called you.
Well, what happened is that I had been rehearsing. He'd had rehearsals in the house that they had in Edina. And he also had a little rehearsal hall that was called Dell's Tire Mart.
Okay.
And that was on Seven Corners in St. Paul and the kind of the border of St. Paul and Minneapolis. Anyways, I would go with Jimmy Bowman over to the house in Edina and jam with Prince. And he knew him. He was hanging with these guys at this time. And Jimmy and I were friends for years since we were kids. And so I'd be in the basement and we'd be playing. We had a ball. We had fun. Prince never really thought anything of it, but he really had fun. I got smiles from him when I was playing with him and was jamming. I'd go in there and jam with him, and that was the size of it. Not thinking anything about it. We were probably trying to look for some other extracurricular things to do, and of course that household never had it. But anyways, we would go down there and have fun, have a few beers, and play. And one day, this is after about 2 or 3 times, they brought me upstairs. He and Owen Husney was his manager at the time,
right?
And those guys brought me into the living room, and they asked me if I'd be interested in playing with the band, which would be the Revolution, I would think, at that time.
Yeah.
Or beginning of it anyway.
Right, the beginnings of it. I don't think he actually called it anything.
No, he didn't really have it, but I think it was the beginnings of Revolution.
Absolutely right.
Anyways, and I had to walk away and think about it. I wasn't, I'd love to do that. And this is right when Prince was putting out For You. This is after he had recorded that. 79, right? I think
Sound
1979, he did it all at Sound 80, where we did all our commercials. And I remember him being across the hall when we were singing "In the Land of Dairy Queen." He's in there going,
playing everything,
playing all these,
doing everything.
But anyways, so I thought about it. I was playing with that other band, and I loved doing that. And I was about to go play with Good Vibrations, I think, again, or something. Was it that time? I can't remember. It's so long ago. Was playing with. Anyways, I turned him down. That was the bottom line. I said, nah, I don't want to do it, because I knew what it entailed. I knew that I had to sit and play exactly what he wanted and have to, do dance steps and do all sorts of stuff. I knew that was what it would involve.
I would have loved to have seen that.
It would have never happened,
Oh,
man.
come on. I would have loved that.
Not gonna do it, brother.
Come on.
You could do it way better than I
Put
could.
on the
I'm
fishnets.
not a coordinated man.
Put on
when
the
it comes to
fishnets.
that. Yeah, put on the fishnet stockings and a mask.
I would have given so much money to see that, big brother.
It's just terrible. Anyways, that was that one. That turned down.
But you
big.
fast forward 10, 15 years.
Yeah, 10, 15 years. He and I always, right after Purple Rain came out, I'd go see him, and I would be, he would say, of course, let Ricky in. He'd be, he's part of the deal. So I'd go, and I'll never forget, I went to Chicago and saw him do the first Purple Rain. We went over to the old Met Center and watched him rehearse Purple Rain.
Yep.
I thought it was the coolest thing that I ever saw in my life, because he had the props, where he would pop up on one side, and 2 seconds later he's on the other side. And people were like, it was wonderful. Anyway, but he enjoyed my company when I was there. He eventually invited me to come to Paisley Park and do some stuff over there, and we ended up. After I went there, because Tom Tucker, our friend, there's a lot of history here that we could go on. There's 8,000 different stories that could go on. But Tom and I ended up working together as a team, recording other people, and we would go in to Paisley Park because it was the only great studio in town.
You rented Paisley Park.
We would go in and rent, and then we ended up, I think Tom actually helped build and get all the equipment for these guys. Because he was very into that, and he had just moved to the Twin Cities, I think. Probably not just, but this is something that he could do. He could run the studio part of it. And he did that, and of course, we were best friends, and I was working on a lot of stuff, so I would eventually just came in there, and I knew everybody in the building.
Right.
And they just open-armed me and said, come on up. We have a room upstairs for you, man. So I had a room at Paisley Park from 1990 through 98 or something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. I can't remember the real dates, you guys, but something like that.
I think you were out of there. I say we because I've moved in with you. He said, little brother, why don't you come and hang out with me? Yeah. So that's how I went back in to Paisley, was because of his relationship with Prince. But you were, long story short, he made you a staff producer at Paisley Park, did he not?
He did. He threw me a couple of bones, man, is what he did, because I was in there with David Z for years. David Z is another person that I hung out with for many, many years and did a lot of great music with. And that, of course, is Bobby Z's brother, who was the drummer with the Revolution.
Right.
And so David and I did a lot of productions together, including the Jets. That was
Fine
one of
Young
them,
Cannibals.
Fine Young Cannibals, and we did Colin Young, a bunch of different cool things. And he knew that I was in there, and I was working every other studio and doing that, and then juggling, playing with you, playing with Sanborn, and then playing with
Miller Band.
Yeah. And my career, and going to Japan with Ben and doing that stuff, and Sadao Watanabe, and anyways, that it was a wonderful time for me. Hectic as hell, is obviously.
You were busy. You were working.
It was great, and what a wonderful experience for me to be able to do that and then share it with Paul. Paul came in, and this is after Paul had his little maybe a spat, as we would call it.
Go listen to episode 1 if you want to know what he's talking about.
Yeah, the family and Prince, and Paul had his own career at the time, but I wasn't very welcome in the Paisley Park, so I kind of snuck him in a few times just to play on some of the tracks that I was doing for Prince.
He sure did.
So I was producing. When I said he threw me a bone, he would throw me a bone. Like the first bone he threw was, was Mavis Staples was one of them. Nona Gay.
Yeah.
There was a few other ones too. And then when he heard that stuff and went, wow, that's pretty smoking, he enjoyed what we had done to that. And Paul's playing bass on this stuff, and I don't think he knew that.
Probably not. Probably not.
And he loved every minute of it. But as soon as he found out who it was, because I'm sure he had to see the roster of people on the record, right?
He didn't kick me out. He let me stay.
No
That was
way.
nice of you to let me come and hang out.
Well,
with you,
of course. Anyways, we had to get that aired out anyway. So that ended up doing. He handed me a cassette tape of The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, and it had some garbled keyboards on it, and it had his guitar part and all his vocals, and it was like I couldn't decipher really what it was. But I asked one of the engineers, one of the techs, they said, and Tom Tucker, I said, "Do you guys really think this is a hit?" And they said, "It's a smash. Trust us." And I'm like, "Okay." So I took it and I deciphered what I thought he was going for, which ended up pretty much an arrangement of mine.
Yeah.
That ended up being The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, which was his last #1 hit
Jeez.
Yeah, and probably one of the biggest hits that he ever had that he did out of the Warner Brothers contract. He did it with a company called Bellmark.
Okay.
And that was the only one when he was wearing taff cap on his, or slave.
It was
And we
Slave.
called him taff cap because he was the former
artist-
only
the artist
formerly known as
Prince.
Taff cap. Anyway,